super tough follow here, having a Olympic athlete and star-studded group.
We're star-studded.
Yeah, right? In our own mind.
Yeah.
So my name is Leeann Dallimore. I thought this panel was fitting when I got paired with a Fireside chat. Lamar Advertising is a 122-year-old company with one founder and 3 CEOs. And my new friend Skip, the CMO of Golden Corral, has had a very similar 50-year company with only 3 CEOs. And my new friend Leeann with Via Agency, the creative agency. And we're excited to talk about this. As we prep for this, one of the most exciting things that I saw, we could have went many ways. We could have went the advertising route. We could have went, let's talk deep into detail about quick service restaurants, fast service restaurants. But what I really saw about 2 minutes into the conversation was this unique partnership. So Skip, what I would love for you to kind of share with the audience is just kind of that importance of trust and partnerships. And I'll kind of set the stage here. When you came in as the new CMO of Golden Corral, the first thing a CMO does, I'll use my words instead of yours, is you overview the agency, and it typically is a grim experience.
Every agency knows it's the end of the line.
Yeah, and you're the creative agency.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's a typical thing that happens with the CMO if they even get to that point of fighting for their job. A lot of times you bring in your own agency. I actually started late October of 21. It was kind of right as COVID was just starting to get behind us. Went up to visit Via in Maine. Not the best place to visit in December. Right. Wonderful in the summer. Wonderful in the summer.
You're definitely getting fired at this point, right, Leeann?
Well, we arranged some ski weather.
But went up there and actually via Leeann, Teddy Steckline, her executive creative director, and the team walked me through the original pitch that they had done for Golden Corral's business 7.5 years earlier, and through the entire creative reel. And 2 things struck me. One is I'm not firing this agency. And the second is the work and the insight I saw from a world-class agency in Via hadn't actually hit the reel. So I thought that this was an opportunity to basically take the handcuffs off someone who had been on the business for a number of years, but I didn't think had ever had a full opportunity based off the historical reel to bring their vision to life.
I think what we heard on another panel is so true, right? That work comes not just from agencies, but from agency-client partnerships. And so they're equally responsible for the work. And the wonderful thing about Skip coming in as a CMO was he recognized that too and said something has been off on both sides because we have the right strategy, we have the right people, we need to open it up in a different direction. And when he says take the handcuffs off, that's like the greatest gift you can give a partner, right? Is to say, show us what you're capable of with no restraints. And that was an amazing moment, and I think unleashed a great deal of opportunity for both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's extremely important in any relationship, right? It's the trust that is that. So it's kind of this aha moment where it's like, okay, let's really dive in. And we had a sizzle reel, but what the sizzle reel really showed, and those of you who highly unlikely, no disrespect, but Skip and I agreed.
Yep.
Raise a hand if you've actually eaten at a Golden Corral or actually seen a Golden Corral. Oh, look at this. Shout out.
Oh, more than I thought, but that's good.
Sidebar, I have 12-year-old triplets and a 10-year-old, so we attend Golden Corral often because it is the experience. But one of the beautiful things as we were prepping as well is seeing the creative that you guys do. Being a New Orleans native, everything is around food, but it's not about the food itself. It's about the experience. So touch on that a bit.
One of the things when Skip said take the handcuffs off, we had a really honest conversation about the fact that we had been asked to follow the best practices of a category in decline. And we were saying, what's really best practices about doing the same thing everyone else is doing when it's not working for them either? And we had a chance to say, we have the right strategy. We know we need to talk to different types of people. You're a perfect example, Ian, because Golden Corral is not where you go for date night, as we know. But if you have a big family or a church group or a team or a military unit or a group of friends from work, it is the best place because every person comes there because they want to eat something different. It's a buffet, for those of you who aren't familiar. But they come together because they have something in common. They share a bond. So we said, what if we told those stories? And we're not just talking about the limited time offer food and that we have chicken wings to sell this week. That's important because we have to sell the chicken wings for sure, right? But what really it allows us to do is use the food as a catalyst to tell the stories of our customers. Yep. And we get to know them, you get to relate to them. And I think you'll agree that the customers who were a little bit lapsed saw themselves and were reminded why they belonged at Golden Corral.
Yeah, that's completely the case. We saw awareness, consideration, trial all jump substantially. And in 2023, according to Foursquare, it's one of our measurement partners, along with iSpot, a third of our visits in 2023 were from guests that hadn't been in a Golden Corral in the previous 12 months, yep. Which I'll take every year if I can keep that.
Not only that, they not only hadn't come in, they were actively saying, and I'm not going to. And we changed the narrative completely by talking to them as people, not just consumers of food.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to pat yourself on the back as well, but you guys were also Yelp's most loved brand in 2023.
One of 50.
That's huge, right? Yeah, but you're in the likes of Lululemon, you're in the likes of Nike, and here it is, this buffet, and it had to have been the creative impact that played such a massive role there.
Well, to be fair, there have been a significant amount of operational changes as well, but it's a combination of the two. And part of being good partners is really knowing each other's business. And we've been partners with Golden Corral for almost 10 years. And honestly, there was a pandemic thrown in there. Pandemics are not good for buffets, in case you didn't guess that one. And in fact, we weren't sure if after pandemics were going to be good for buffets. But the brand team took such an opportunity to think through how they could improve the product and offer the best possible product at the same time that we were shifting the messaging. And it's really been a hand-in-glove experience.
Yeah, and I want you to touch on this because very similar to Smucker's where they jokingly but weren't joking, like buy a house here and then we'll take you serious. Yeah. One of the assets that you guys have outside of having such a brilliant CMO that's come from Procter & Gamble, you guys also have the Franchisees Advisory Board. So touch on that for the audience and how they're giving the voice to talk to the creative agency to help really enlighten you all the way down to a specific region and the why. Like this may resonate in Pennsylvania, but it doesn't resonate in South Louisiana.
Yeah, I think the darkest of times in our 51-year history as a brand, and I came in October 21 when I went up to Maine in December and initially met Leeann and her team, was during the pandemic. We were shut for about 6 months. We hadn't advertised for 15 months. And we're just coming on. Just started advertising in August of 21 when I had started on the brand. So I'd say it was the second inning of a comeback, to use a baseball analogy. We were blessed with really I think three things. One is loyal customers who loved us. The second is the franchisees you talked about. We had incredibly strong, well tenured franchisees, and no one wanted the pandemic to come. Certainly not Golden Corral. But what it did is it ended up pruning the rose bush, so to speak, of the weakest franchisees, the ones that hadn't been taking care of their guests. And so we were left with a much stronger system after the fact. And third, and probably, I think most importantly, honestly, is Lance Trineri is the third CEO in our 51-year history. And an IFMA Gold Plate winner, which is kind of like the best picture at the Oscars winner in the restaurant industry in 22. So we had that groundwork, but I just didn't think that the marketing was a match for those aspects, as well as the value and variety we provided to guests. So ultimately, the Franchise Advisory Council that we work with, which is 15 people that represent all the franchisees around the country. We have 352 restaurants. Across the U.S. and in Alaska, and ultimately, they like the direction, they like the new thinking, and ultimately, we brought VIA into those council meetings. They're a permanent member of those council meetings, which usually your agencies aren't. So they hear the financial talk, the operational challenges, the entire business, and are therefore able to apply the creativity from VIA to help our business.
Yeah, I think that is really the key, is that we've been invited into these internal operational discussions. As you say, pricing, we know what food is being purchased. But more than that, we have a relationship with franchisees where they know that we understand this is their family business. And we respect that, and we really understand that what we're doing is important to a lot of people's lives. And I think that we've built a relationship that is obviously wonderful with the C-suite, great with Lance, as you mentioned, the CEO. We're good friends, but I think the fact that we have relationships with franchisees allows us to do better work and allows us to take them on the journey with us, right? Because anyone who works with a franchisee or a distribution network understands how difficult it can be to sell work into them. But actually, they're huge advocates of what we get to do together. And I think it makes it that much more interesting because they bring every campaign idea to life all the way through the restaurant.
Yeah, and I love the pride aspect of it, right? Because I think oftentimes we as consumers, we forget, especially a brand like Golden Corral, we forget that there's franchisees that have poured, a lot of them, their life savings. This is generational wealth, families that are being built. So oftentimes, and I won't name a specific one, but we'll call them the Veluzzo Company, is one of the largest franchisees for the Golden Arch Company, and he's a very good friend of mine. And for a very significant time, he thought that he was literally just screaming at a blank wall because he couldn't get the creative agency, the agency itself, to listen. So that's gold for you.
I mean, it's gold for us because it builds a really lasting relationship, but it's gold for us because we have deeper insight into the business. And when you sit across from someone and talk about how they started as a server in a Golden Corral and they worked their way up and then they bought one and then they bought two and now their son has two and they have a whole thing and they say, I want you to meet my wife. I want you to meet my grandkids. It's a great relationship, but it's also we're in one business together. And that was the other team that talked about relationships said that. We really are. There's a Golden Corral is one of those brands that treats every employee and every franchisee and frankly us as family.
Audience. The other thing that it gives you the ability to understand the audience, which then relates over to creative. Touch on the impacts of audience engagement, both in the most recent campaign that you guys have done, and then for you, Skip, just understanding that evolution of the audience and how they've changed from day one of Golden Corral till today.
One of the things I'll say is that when we pitched the business almost 10 years ago, we don't have a Golden Corral in our geography. And we made a commitment that we have a lot of other clients and they're all over the country. And that every time we go traveling for our other clients, we would go to Golden Corral. And that's true. Everybody in the agency goes and stops in Golden Corral wherever they're traveling, if they're on a shoot or whatever they're doing, because it's an opportunity to talk to and listen to the consumers. So it's not just about research. It's about actually knowing the people there. And I think that's why the stories that are told and the moments that are highlighted in the work are so authentic. You can talk about how we changed the target a little bit too.
Yeah, I mean, one of the tagline for Golden Corral is the only one for everyone. So it's the variety in 150 items on our buffet bar. Literally there is something for everyone. And I think the biggest thing we did is we made that tent bigger, and we introduced a lot more doors into that tent through our media buying. When I took over, we were 95% linear TV and streaming. This year is more like 70-30. Next year will be probably 2/3, 1/3. So we've changed how we bought the media from a targeting standpoint. The trick is attracting those new. I talked about 1/3 of the guests being new, but attracting them into your brand without alienating the people who are paying the bills today. Right. Yep. So your current guests, and ultimately, we got younger. As well as we always had a lot of Hispanic and African American guests in Golden Corral, but it was because of the value, the variety, and the experience. But we never intentionally targeted that group through media and through creative, through casting, and we've done that. And ultimately, I think that was a big part of the growth of our I think business last 2 years.
And you made a really good point. It's not just about targeting people. It's about inviting them into the tent. And so when we shoot work now, we do it in multiple languages. We cast the same cast who can do English speaking or Spanish speaking, because people have to be invited and welcomed and seen, not just targeted. So that's an important part.
Yeah, last question here. The evolution of media, obviously, you talked about the transition from linear to streaming, but we touched on the impact of social media, the impact of influencers as we were prepping for this. Touch on that, because that's a newer phase for you. And some brands, I would agree, you don't need to dive deep into TikTok and dive deep into that. It's kind of a slow transition because you guys better understand the audience themselves, but you're now dipping deeper into social and the influencer side. kind of leave our audience with the why that's important
Do you
and
want to
how.
talk to that, or you want me to start on that? Okay, go for it.
Yeah, let me start. I think the specificity and the measurability of social media allows us to reach audiences in that only one for everyone campaign that frankly maybe we can't do on a national level. And so we're able to kind of, from a marketing message standpoint and from a proposition, address multiple audiences simultaneously that I frankly can't afford to do and probably shouldn't do on a national basis in linear television commercial.
And I think it also allows us to really round out the experiences that we're showcasing in the sort of more linear television, advertising, because we just get to know the people at Golden Corral more when we're showcasing more of them, and we're getting deeper into their lives, and that's really wonderful. And I think that's why the results have been so astounding. And I mean, you're growing. Literally every week we get the restaurant counts and the sales counts, and every week we set a new 50-year record. It's really astonishing.
Yeah. Favorite buffet item at Golden Corral? Go.
Sliders.
Fried chicken.
Oh, fried chicken.
It's really good. The fried chicken's
delicious.
amazing.
Skip, Leeann, this has been a pleasure for me. Brent Innovators, thank you guys so much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.